Hello, this is Frank J. Avella with Awards Daily. Accused is a new anthology series premiering on Fox January 22nd that explores crime via the victim's point of view. An especially powerful episode titled Ava's Story is directed by Academy Award winner Marlee Matlin, marking her directorial debut. The episode centers on a young deaf woman who makes a bold move when she feels a child's well being is at stake. Marley fashions the episode so we are able to see things from the perspective of the deaf protagonist. It's a truly remarkable style of storytelling we rarely see. I am happy to welcome Marley Matlin. Hi,
Hello,
Marley.
hello.
Marley, it's so nice to see you again. And I wanted to start by asking you if directing was a passion you always had.
Directing was always something that I had considered and flirted with for a while. Actually, I wasn't sure exactly what and where I would do it, what what medium it was going to be, whether it's television or film, until my agent told me that Howard Gordon expressed an interest in me directing his new television series. Now, who's going to pass up Howard Gordon? I couldn't pass that up. And that's when I had the opportunity to read the script and immediately fell in love with the story because it was a story that had never been told before in television. It was a perspective that was never presented before in television. So I grabbed that opportunity, and it was an honor to say yes. That was my first directing experience.
I found the episode to be so layered. I watched it twice, and the second time I watched it, I got more out of it. First thing I want to ask is, can you tell us a bit about directing for TV versus film? What are the differences?
Well, I haven't directed a film yet, and it's safe to say that, but I'm going to get there. So you can ask me about that next time after I direct my first movie, and we'll make that comparison. But I think the difference is probably directing in episodic television. You're probably the best way to start. For me, it was a good place to jump into it because not having experience as a director, but having experience as or having an eye for the camera as an actor, having an understanding of how everything works on a set in making episodic television, having done it so often, I think I was able to do this in a way that was a great start for me. It was a great way to kick off my career as a director.
And deaf
And,
actors
and,
play.
and I had an amazing support team. I had a great support team, everyone involved. So, and I was fortunate enough to have a script and a story that I was able to, what's the best word, to present. I mean, it was a great way to get my feet wet, if you want to put it that way.
And the importance of deaf actors playing deaf characters. That's something I know you have fought
Absolutely,
for.
that was crucial for me. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I couldn't even imagine anybody else who wasn't deaf doing this as an actor, or who wasn't deaf doing it as a director, because I think authenticity is important these days to be
Yeah.
able to tell the story of these characters, to be able to understand what these characters go through, the journey, to be able to convey the feelings of being threatened by what may transpire in a baby's future, a baby who happens to be deaf. I have deaf eyes. I know from experience. I know and understand my culture very well, and I can understand what it's like to jump into the mind of a deaf woman.
Oh, absolutely. And were you involved heavily with the casting, Marley? Because I know you knew Stephanie from Switched at Birth.
I did have the opportunity to be involved in casting every aspect of it, except what the studio then eventually decided. But my input was, they asked for my input, and I worked with Marlee Matlin, who wrote the script, who was also a fantastic advocate in terms of finding the right actress for the part. I mean, she clearly wrote the script, but she also, I was fortunate to, when I met her, learn sign language. She had a sense and an appreciation for our culture and our community, what our community is like, what we go through, and everything having to do with the language. So, what was the question?
Oh, it was about input in casting and
Yes, casting. I was amazed at having produced a couple of movies before, but being in the casting process as a director and having to look at all the different people and the names, people I knew, people I didn't know, people I looked with on Google, people that I work with in New York and in Canada. It was an interesting journey and an interesting part of the directing process, how it worked. And yeah, it was, they were all great. All the actors that we cast were great. But it made me think for future projects who I might want to consider, because you really need to collaborate when you're talking about deaf actors that are out there.
Well, and Stephanie was fantastic, and so was Josh. I was really, really impressed with him as well.
Josh is a delight to work with. I've known him from Spring Awakening when we were on Broadway together. And for one, he is a lovely man who has such a passion for the art as an actor, as someone who creates this character that you see on the screen. He's always wanting to learn, and he's just been, I mean, he's just thirsting for something that could enhance his performance, whatever it is that can bring the character to life on the screen. He was just a delight to work with. And Stephanie, of course, I mean, she is such a beautiful person inside and out. And I love watching both of them, Josh and Stephanie, as well as all of the hearing actors, watching them being an actor myself, working in front of me. And that was one of my favorite times while I was directing. That was fun.
Gosh, I can imagine. And Marley, an important theme, arguably the most important theme that's explored in this episode, is about forcing what we want on our children when it's not in their best interest. In this case, cochlear implants. Can you explain a little bit about the procedure?
I mean, the procedure of a cochlear implant, I can tell you, is not my expertise. It's a medical procedure, but as a person who's observed how parents make or make the decision when they discover their child is deaf, some of them, from what I've seen, either refuse or are in denial of the available resources that go beyond the cochlear implant. The bottom line is that we are not here to tell parents what to do with their children. Okay, obviously, that's an obvious choice. Parents need to make that decision for their child, whatever is in their best interest. However, a lot of times they are exposed to misinformation. And all I want to be able to say is that when you find out your baby is deaf or your child is deaf, do the best you can, do whatever it is to get access to every single resources and get answers from both sides, whether you're talking about cochlear implants or American Sign Language. And the bottom line is that when you take off a cochlear implant at the end of the day, or you go and take a shower, you're still deaf. Mm-hmm. So don't rely on the cochlear implant as a crutch to solve the deafness. I think sign language is a great resource. It allows a child access to language before you fix the quote-unquote hearing issue. And if you don't know what American Sign Language does or what the benefits of American Sign Language out there, do your homework, do your research, meet deaf people. There are so many wonderful examples of successful deaf people. I am not speaking for everybody. I'm not telling that you must do this, but the proof is in the pudding that, well, I mean, I'm going to stop right there. I don't want to keep on expounding about it. So
I fully understand. It's funny, the line, if it's an easier life, resonated with me. It was always the heterosexual mantra when they were hoping their child wasn't gay. And it's nice that we're challenging that antiquated notion of what an easier life is.
What is easier? Is it easier for who? What is convenient? Who is it convenient for? Is it convenient for you, or is it convenient for the person you're talking about?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit about what you accomplished in this episode because you use silence and sounds in a very specific manner. You can feel the heartbeat during her labor, for instance. Can you speak a little bit about your approach?
I've always asked, I mean, I want to understand what it was like to sound like in terms of the breath that an actor expresses. The first question I always asked was when they gave me this idea of being a director, I thought, well, how am I going to know what the hearing actor is saying? How am I going to understand their delivery? I can only base my judgment of their acting work on what I see, but I can't understand about their tone or their delivery of the lines, whatever scene it might be. So I said, well, that's what collaboration is all about. So I worked in partnership with people on the set to tell me if it was what the script was looking for. And the bottom line was I had to ask questions, whether they were silly or not. It was important for me to ask questions. There's no need to be afraid. And if you're talking about the heartbeat, yeah, that is something that I thought should be there as a perspective of a hearing person understanding what a person is deaf experiences, as opposed to relying on solely your hearing or what you're seeing. It was interpreting the sounds of silence, if you want to put it that way. What it is we hear is not what you hear. What you see is not what we see. But that's what I try to express.
You also managed to take special care to make sure most of the signing was seen in full. And that's something that many hearing directors aren't always careful with.
They don't know.
They don't know. Or some, I mean, it's safe to say that some either don't know or some rely on the old idea of what film art should be, what works for them. And it's okay for people to have different perspectives, but if you're talking about deaf actors, I mean, look, if you want to make sound important, why can't you make the visuals important? We want to see the signs the same way that you want to hear the dialogue. So you can't put sign language out of the frame. And while they're signing, you have to be able to watch what's being said instead of making sure that the perspective of the camera is on the other person. You want to be able to give them equal footing. You want people to make up for the fact that it's never been done this way before.
Well, bravo to you. Seriously. I thought it was a magnificent episode. When we last spoke, CODA was an Oscar underdog.
CODA. CODA.
CODA. Yeah. Hoping for a nomination. Then it won all 3 Academy Awards, including Best
Oh my
Picture. I want
God.
you, tell me about the Oscar experience.
It's funny when we were sitting there and there were a lot of things that were going on that night, I'm sure you know. But anyway, first of all, nerves was a big thing. And when Troy's name was called, I mean, of course I knew that was going to happen. And I thought to myself, oh, great. Yes, now I'm not the only person who is deaf who won an Academy Award. I get to now share this with someone else, another deaf actor, a fellow actor who has an Oscar. That was great. That was an experience for me. I mean, getting an Oscar is overwhelming in the first place, but now I could check that off. And then when Sean Peter won, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So we're now 2 for 3. We're on a roll. And then when they announced Best Picture, with everything that happened just a few minutes beforehand, leading up to that moment, I was hoping that they would say CODA and just to validate that the movie was in itself groundbreaking and deserving of the win. Because people cared, because people got what we were trying to do, and people appreciated this beautiful film. So yeah.
Just how significant was that win, Marlee?
It was significant in the fact that we didn't make it for naught. The fact that all the films that were nominated that year, all the films that were not nominated that year. I mean, certainly every film deserves recognition. But the fact that this film was a long time coming, the fact that it defied the odds and won the best was such a validating experience, and I hope there'll be more like that.
Yes, absolutely. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you how much you deserved a nomination. I have no idea why that didn't happen, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you.
You were also elected to the Academy Board of Governors this year. Congratulations.
you.
Do you know what your duties will be?
I do. I am working a great deal with the issue of accessibility. And I can say to you right now that the Academy has been nothing but extremely supportive in our efforts to create greater accessibility in our community and in the film world. They have worked diligently, very hard, to make sure that it all works out well in terms of making things work and being accessible. All my films that I've been watching for Oscar considerations have been closed captioned, and I'm very grateful to the Academy for that. And being on the Board of Governors allows me to be part of the process. It's a big job, but I am embracing it the max, and I'm making sure that I do whatever it is I can, not only for myself, but on behalf of everyone in the film community.
Fantastic. And well deserved, by the way. Also, since we last spoke, we lost William Hurt, and I was wondering if you had anything you wanted to say about that.
Do you want the truth?
Yes.
The truth is, I'm still digesting it. I'm still, his passing, really, I can't, I mean, I would have an in-depth discussion, but there's really nothing to say because I'm still in the process of digesting it, really.
Understandable, absolutely. Marlee, my last question for you. Are you developing anything new, and have you been cast in anything that we should know about?
I am on board several projects. Some of them are very close to production, the yes or no answer, but I am going to be directing a television series, a streaming series that I just closed the deal on, and I'm going to be acting in it as well. And that one was something I just closed. It's called.
Oh, wait a minute, go
Wait,
back.
wait. Let me go back. Let me
Okay.
go back. Let me scratch that. Hold on. That's
Sure,
another
no problem.
I am going to be. I'm collaborating with Amblin for a project called Signs of Survival about two young sisters, one deaf and one hearing, who went through the Holocaust. It's based on a true story.
Oh.
And we're going to be having our first meeting next week, and this is with Scholastic and Amblin, so it's great, amongst other projects as well.
Well, I look forward to all of them, and I love seeing you on screen, and I love seeing you acting. You're so fantastic, and the way your craft has evolved has been fascinating to watch.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I'm not going anywhere, so thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time, Marlee. And I hope that the episode is a huge rating smash.
Thank you for your support. Always good to see you.
Likewise.